On this episode of the Contagious Influencers of America podcast, we're catching up with two prominent film producers ahead of their next big release.
I remember going into Disney and I had the rights to a novel that had been published in the Christian world, but was really an action adventure, had a lot of mainstream elements. I remember going in there pitching it, and I got laughed right out of the office. Like, well, what do you mean you're going to have faith, Christian content in a movie?
I'm David Sams, and this is CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. You know, we've got a great episode for you today because I have two incredible production icons in the house. Cindy Bond, she's produced amazing films, including I Can Only Imagine and I Still Believe. Of course, I Can Only Imagine broke all kinds of independent film box office records a few years ago, and that was one of the best faith-based films of all time. And I have the one and only Roma Downey. We all, of course, know Roma from her prominent acting role in Touched by an Angel. And throughout the years, she's produced so many wonderful films and TV projects. Of course, she produced The Bible a few years back, and that broke all kinds of records on television for a miniseries. So I have got both of them here today, and I'm really pleased. They're going to be talking about their new project, and it's going to be coming out in just a few days, and it's called Redeeming Love. And this film is, of course, based on the ever so popular historical romance novel by Francine Rivers. And, of course, it was inspired by the Bible itself. And I just got to tell you, that book sold millions of copies. So it's finally coming to the big screen. And, of course, it's a faith-based Christian film. But I want to give you a little bit of a heads up because it is rated PG-13. It does have some edgy content in it. This is not something you're probably going to want to take somebody who's 10 years old. But it is so important because it deals with issues that we sometimes don't want to talk about. And I'm not going to jump too far ahead of myself here, but I will tell you it does include trafficking and prostitution, but I'll tell you, it brought me to tears. It really moved me, and I highly, highly recommend it. So I'm so glad that Cindy and Roma could squeeze in some time for us because this is a big, big, big week for them, and I can't wait to feature them here. It's very unique. They've had very unique career paths, and of course we've featured Roma here on the podcast before, but we've never had the opportunity to have Cindy. So I can't wait for her to share a bit of her journey with you. And please bear with us a little bit. I have to tell you, the audio quality of this interview is not so good. I have no idea. Sometimes this Skype thing works and the Zoom thing works, and sometimes it just doesn't, but I was fortunate enough to get a couple of really, really busy people on the phone here at the homestead. And, you know what? I think the content outweighs the quality of the audio feed, so I just had to include it here on the podcast. So before we get to that interview, let me just play a little bit of this is a little preview of Redeeming Love.
Now in theaters, Redeeming Love, based on the best-selling novel by Francine Rivers.
That's Angel, finest girl west of the Rockies.
A life-changing story of the power of relentless love and perseverance. Redeeming Love shows there is no brokenness love can't heal.
That way is home. Your choice.
Redeeming Love. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters now. Go to redeeminglovemovie.com.
Now let's get to my interview. First, producer Cindy Bond. Hello, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I am so good today. It's a good day. And where are you at today?
I am currently in Los Angeles and having a little bit of a cold spell out here.
Oh, I know. I was out there last week, and I had to get back to Nashville to get some warm weather. So Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, usually we're pretty spoiled out here. It's usually pretty warm, but I got to tell you, I was actually out in the Palm Springs area, and it was pretty nice, but a little chilly out there. But I came back to Los Angeles. So
Yeah,
I got the ski jacket out.
There you go. So I'm really interested in talking about redeeming love and go behind the scenes on that a little bit. But first, I just want you to familiarize the listeners with who you are and what your background is. So why don't you just tell us, where were you raised, and tell us a little bit about your family. Okay, let's start from the very beginning, from day one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, how long is the show? No, I'm kidding. Well, I actually was born and raised in Sacramento, California. So I'm a Northern California girl. I was actually raised by my grandparents. My parents, unfortunately, divorced when I was very, very young. But, God works all things together for the good, because my grandmother, my father's parents, she just loved movies, and she just plopped me down in front of, at that time, the TV, and we'd go to the theater when at times, and, show me all these, Cecil B. DeMille movies, all the big epic, wonderful, Ten Commandments, The Robe, and then Rodgers and Hammerstein. So I was a movie buff. Ever since I was a little kid, loved music-driven films. I think that's why I ended up doing. I can only imagine many years later. But went to college down in San Diego State. I was thinking I was going to become a professional golfer. That was what I was working towards. But then, it was kind of interesting. I went to Los Angeles, fell in love with my soon-to-be husband, Steve Bond, who ended up becoming a big name actor in daytime on General Hospital, and really at that point fell into through a series of events, went into producing, and wasn't too long after that I produced my first. It was actually a movie for television on Lifetime, actually true story, and then through a series of events, I met Norm Miller, started up a company called Noran Entertainment with him and his wife Ann. We produced, and didn't know it at the time, but really were modern day, a very small group of us out there, didn't really know each other at the time, modern day pioneers of this, soon to be, quite widely accepted faith-based film market. So we made a very expensive, actually, independent film called The Joyriders, starring Martin Landau. We broke Elizabeth Moss at the time. He's a huge star today. And that led to distribution of a company called Providence Entertainment. Norm and I co-founded with some others and picked up the Omega Code at Script Stage, which was the film. And Matt Crouch produced that and was the film that opened up the marketplace for faith-based films. It told Wall Street and Hollywood that this vastly underserved marketplace was not only being ignored by Hollywood, but was being disrespected. And as I've said for many, many years, Hollywood in the profit business, and those of us have been in the other profit business, so P-R-O-P-H-E-T versus P-R-O-F-I-T, but they all came together. So now you see fantastic work that's been done after Omega Code was the #1 limited theatrical release of '99. Then you saw what Mel Gibson did in '04, and then you come to modern day, and I'm just so proud to see. And I was blessed with God blessing me with I Can Only Imagine and what that's done, and then seeing what Dallas Jenkins has done with The Chosen, and so many friends of mine and all the movies they've been doing from the Irwin Brothers on.
So
there you go.
Hey, that's
35 years, I think, in a nutshell, or 40.
Yeah. What kind of along the way? What kind of doubts and struggles did you face that you had to overcome in this whole new genre of filmmaking?
Oh my gosh, the doubts and the struggles were absolutely immense. First of all, I because I've been in the industry for, I have to say, 40 years, just about 40 years. I mean, just being a woman, coming up through time when it was just difficult to be a woman. It was quite male-dominated, and really still to this day, the industry is more heavily male-dominated than female, which I've always found interesting because women really make the majority of the media buying decisions for families. So it's always been a weird, dichotomy of this strange thing. But just through the years, I mean, I remember going into Disney to Bruckheimer's office, Jerry Bruckheimer, who's produced huge movies. I remember I was all excited. I had the rights to a novel that had been published in the Christian world, but was really an action adventure, had a lot of mainstream elements. I remember going in there pitching it, and I got laughed right out of the office. Like, well, what do you mean you're going to have faith, Christian content in a movie? I mean, there was just a period of time, as I said, raised on, these great movies of Cecil B. DeMille and all these wonderful films that had a moral center and a Judeo-Christian worldview. There was a period of time there for quite a few decades where, Hollywood really just went the opposite direction, and got very dark for a long period of time. And it was like, you didn't go, talk about any movies that had faith in them. That was verboten. And so it really wasn't until 1996. And again, I had so many struggles trying to get this content into the mainstream. And just to let you know, my motivation for me was I felt very much of it being a calling in my life, that this was God just really gave me a vision that this was the kind of content I grew up on. And as I grew up into adulthood, I looked at the media choices being given to us from the studios and the networks, and I just wasn't seeing the kind of films that spoke to me or resonated with my value system, my belief system. So it was really that, and that drove me to wanting to pursue getting that kind of content out into the world. And it was when I met Norm Miller in '96 through a Campus Crusade for Christ event that a miracle happened. And I met Norm not having any idea that, of course, being chairman of Interstate Batteries, I had no idea he was a man of financial means, and also had written a wonderful book about his faith journey. And he asked me what I wanted to do. I told him that I wanted to impact the world for Christ through the media. And he went, well, I want to do the same thing. And that's how it all happened. So, from then forward, we certainly had a lot of challenges as well. But, hey, when you're in the front lines, which we were, you take a lot of gunfire. You take a lot of shots. But it's been well worth it to get here. Well worth it.
So do you think that was the turning point when you met up with Norm, that it all came together?
Yes, it was definitely the turning point, because before then I was just in mainstream secular Hollywood, and I was, it's a very difficult business trying to get movies made. It's not like there's a manual that you can follow that says if you do all these things, you will get a movie made. You could work your whole life and never get a movie made. And it really was a miraculous event when I met Norm, because it was literally within a matter of minutes that he told me he wanted to fund me in a production company. So at first I didn't believe him at all. I thought, oh, that's really nice. I appreciate it. I know he was a Dallas-based businessman, and I thought, oh, lovely man, and I think that's really nice. He would like to do that. And I just left the conference. I called my husband and said, oh, I met this gentleman. He wants to fund me in a production company. And my husband, having been in showbiz for most of his life, he said, oh, that's nice, honey. And then 2 weeks later, Norm called and said, I'm flying my jet into the Van Nuys airport. Can you come pick me up so we can make a deal? So it was definitely one of those crazy scenarios. And Norm, God bless that man. And of course he's alive today, but God bless him eternally, that he stepped up and put his money out there. And it was really provided the means and the partnership and the vision, and, together, and at first and with Ann. And yeah, that was the big turning point in my whole career and in my life.
So we fast forward a few years later, and we have the I Can Only Imagine, and of course we all know how successful that film was and continues to be. How has that experience changed how you are viewed in the very difficult world of Hollywood?
Oh, wow. Well, that was another huge pivotal point because it was the number one. I had the number one limited theatrical release in Omega Code, but I didn't produce it. Matt Crouch did. I was the distributor of that. But I Can Only Imagine was the number one independent film of 2018, and that just opened up everything. It literally, I will say, I mean, for me, I've never done any of this for the money. For me, it's been my calling and my passion, and there's been no greater reward than to make or distribute a movie, actually, to get it, because I've also been, production led me into distribution, first on the domestic theatrical side, then into the foreign sales side. But when you make a movie that is within a biblical worldview and that has themes and messaging that, along those lines, that pours into people's hearts, minds, and souls, and you see their lives just improve or change, and many come to faith, that's the greatest reward that you could ever possibly imagine. So that's what's always driven me. But it is on the Hollywood side, certainly it is show business. It's not show art. So you do need to justify that what you're doing is a success on the financial level as well. So with I Can Only Imagine, I mean, it was a huge success. Not, the movie itself, I'm so proud of it. The Irwin brothers did such a wonderful job directing the picture, and also co-writing in the script. But then financially, it was a huge success. I mean, huge. And, the Irwins have a deal over at Lionsgate because of that. And obviously their prior work was terrific as well. And it's opened huge doors for me as well. I mean, look at, here I am with Redeeming Love. and I feel as though I Can Only Imagine definitely opened the doors and the floodgates for Redeeming Love to get made.
So let's talk about Redeeming Love, because and I have seen I've seen the movie, and I saw it last week, and I have to tell you, I went online, and because I know the faith-based world is either going to love this movie or despise this movie. It's going to be one way or the other. I personally love the movie, but I went online and I read one. This is based on Francine Rivers' book, of course, the bestseller. I read one crazy headline from a Christian publisher from back when the book came out. It said it's a horrible Christian fiction because it includes kidnapping and sex trafficking. And I'm like, really?
Right.
I mean, right. You either have your head in the sand or you don't. And on Goodreads, the novel has, let me see, 239,614 ratings, 4.5 out of 5 stars. And on Amazon, as of today, it has 13,442 ratings, 4.8 out of 5. So obviously, the audience loves it. But my question, and of course, we know that there are going to be gatekeepers that won't love it. So I want to address that because, you had to sell this thing. You had to get, as the producer, you got this thing made, and I'm assuming you went and sold it to Universal. Was that difficult? What was your big challenge there?
Oh my gosh. This is, I had said for a very long time, it's a movie I literally, first of all, it's my absolute favorite book after the Bible. Has been for many, many years. The book's 30 years old. 15 years of that was on the New York Times bestseller list, I believe. There were a number of very resume top-level producers that were trying to make the picture. the book is about 470 pages long. So first off, just the challenge of the fact that you're trying to make a feature film that is a very dense story at 470 pages down into 2 hours. That in of itself is incredibly challenging, because really when you read the book, it's really a miniseries. But, feature for me and for some of the other producers, friends of mine that tried to make this, that was really the goal. I don't remember hearing anyone wanting to have made it into a mini, but just by virtue of the fact that, to your point, I actually think that the faith market, for the most part, will definitely embrace this today, because, really, yes, the book has edgy subject matter, but it is a love story, and it is God's love letter to the world. It is timeless, and it happens to just have subject matter, to what you said in terms of the, sex trafficking and kidnapping and things like that. That are more relevant today than ever. That's nothing we planned. It just happened. So I feel like God's timing is perfect on this. But the challenging parts go so much more than that even. The fact that I always saw this as a big, epic, theatrical romance, just, you're talking a period piece. Our backdrop is California Gold Rush 1850s. We've got Boston. We've got San Francisco. We have a farm, we've got all different Michael's farm, and then just so many. I think we had about 239 scenes. So much to this movie. So right, the cost of it. So you're looking at a movie that's edgy, but it's got faith content, and it's expensive, a period piece, many characters. I can go on. And I just, all glory to God, I can tell you that there was a situation where the funding wasn't coming together, and a miracle happened where I literally, me and another producer, we fell on her, Brittany actually, fell on our faces just praying to God, Lord, we need funding for this picture, the rest of the funding for the movie. And within 2 days, God delivered it. And I feel that happened because God wanted to show us that he was the one that was providing all the means. It was manna from heaven. He was the one sending it down to make this picture, inspired by, as Francine wrote this, inspired by the story of Gomer and Hosea. So it is firmly biblically based. And the edge, at any given time, viewers could turn on just basic cable and see much edgier content than I think the movie has. So I think this is where the rubber meets the road. Yes, there are love scenes in this movie, but they're between a married couple and what God intended for marriage. And there's some steamy scenes here, but they're done very tastefully. And even I have to tell you, the book's even more edgy. We're a PG-13 rating. So anyway, I think everyone's going to absolutely love the movie. There's going to be people that are probably going to go, oh, this is too edgy for me, but I think they'll see it anyway.
and what about this movie connected with you on a personal level?
Oh my gosh. On a personal level, it connected to me so deeply, because it's so rich in terms of all the themes and the messages and the journey of Angel, and brokenness that she dealt with. And it's just, for me personally, I don't know, I'll just speak as being a woman. I think there are few women, if any, in the world, and I would say probably none of us, that in our lives we've made choices we wish we hadn't made, that we carry guilt or shame. And then are plenty of women, so unfortunately, that have suffered greatly at the hands of others, and have carried shame and brokenness and all that. And this is a story of God's never-ending and eternal, steadfast love and forgiveness of anything that we've done, or the deliverance of things that have been done to us. And So I've said that, I feel that women, to some degree, most have carried a level of shame. And this is a story of second, third, and fourth. I mean, there are endless chances here. God's always here for us, his never-ending pursuit to be in a relationship with us, which is depicted through the character of Michael. But the movie, as I say that, we're talking about some dark subject matter that the movie contains. But that's the world. But what is in this movie is liquid hope. It's hope alive, living hope in our relationship with Christ, or for those that don't know him, can choose to have that. So even for those that we have a tagline on our trailer, I mean, you didn't choose the life you want, but you can choose the life you want to have. Or you can, you didn't choose the life you had, you can choose the life you want to have. It is, life is choice. Our relationship with God is about free will and making a decision, making a choice. Mm-hmm, so, I mean, I could go on and on about it, but, and the romance of this, I mean, I reread this book often. I've read it twice since I made the movie. It just is, I'm enveloped in God's love when I read Francine's novel. Mm-hmm, it's truly a story ordained by God.
You know, for somebody listening right now, how can they, how do you think they can find hope in their brokenness?
By reaching out and to ask God to come into their life. And if they don't know him, to invite Jesus into their heart, to go into a relationship with God. For those that already know God, to reach out to him, knowing that, you know, there are these times where we might turn our back on him, but he never turns his back on us. There's nothing that you could possibly do if that's what's keeping you from a relationship with him. There's nothing that you can do to separate yourself from him. Nothing, no matter what you've done. So it's about, you know, repenting and asking for forgiveness, and he's always there to forgive you. Yeah.
Can we just get a little personal here, and can you share with me possibly a redemption story from your own life?
Sure. I think that I had being a child. I mean, really, in a way. I mean. DJ Caruso, our director, who did a fantastic job with Redeeming Love, he made a statement that I agree with, that he feels most women have a part of angel that lives in them. I agree with that. I like the character of Angel. Of course, when she was little, she was Sarah. Of course, her mother made some bad choices, and then died, and she became an orphan and taken in, unfortunately for her, into a brothel, sold in. For me, my parents split as a very young child, and I was raised by my grandparents, and I really had a hard time because I didn't have a mother. And when I only saw my mother. She came to visit me once a year till I was 12, and then from the age of 12 to 18, when a woman needs her mother most, I didn't see her one time. So I harbored through those years a lot of resentment towards my mother, and then from the age of about 18 to 22, it felt like it was even worse. The relationship was almost non-existent. Had a lot of guilt and bitterness that I had towards her, and there was a period of time where I just, through some friends and, I was speaking to in counseling, and actually Christian counselor, family counselor, and talking to me about the power of forgiveness, that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you living with that unforgiveness, the unforgiveness turning to bitterness. And I was carrying that. And in my case, I needed some Christian counseling, which I fully support, and praying with me. And I literally had a God epiphany, and at that point in my life, really went on my face and fully forgave my mother. And that was a huge turning point in my life. Huge. Because after that was when I then met my husband, and then I got married and had kids. So, and things turned around with my mother too. And she came to know the Lord. She didn't know the Lord before. So through the movies I made. And, yeah.
Wow. So thank you for sharing that. So how would you say that God's love is reflected in this story, redeeming love?
Oh my goodness. I would say it permeates the story, but certainly the Michael character is that Jesus character. I mean, he's a human in our movie, of course, but certainly through that character of being sacrificial and patient and loving and kind and prayerful, but on like a Jesus, where Jesus was, man and God. This Michael character, like I said, is also, he's a man here that we're as a character, but where he struggled to be all those things, to sacrifice, to wait for Angel, and then seeing how Angel's journey, coming through all she went through with being sold into in that time prostitution, and growing up in that, it being the only life she knew, and then her coming together with Michael at first. Her going with him as a way of escape, him coming to her because that's a calling, because God called him to marry her, and him being just incredulous, like, are you kidding me? She's a prostitute. Aren't you calling me to marry someone else? But his obedience. And so the whole story is just filled with God's love, and through all of the humanity, all of the life journey that we go through. The events in our lives that transpire in all different ways, and that God's constant and eternally loving and caring and understanding and always there for us and always forgiving. Yeah.
You've mentioned Angel a few times, and I just want to say I thought that Abigail's performance was astonishing. Tell me what it was like. Tell us about her and what it was like working with her.
Oh, she was absolutely wonderful. First of all, we had a casting search, DJ and myself and my co-producers and Brittany Yost and Michael Scott, and later Simon Swart came on to the picture with Antiba Pictures, his company. But the casting process was immense. We auditioned. Sheila Jaffe cast the movie. We auditioned hundreds. We looked through. Not only did we audition hundreds, actually, Sheila. We went through all the tapes, but worldwide. So it wasn't just the U.S. We went through the entire world looking for our Angel. And when Abigail Canlon came in that office and she read, I wasn't there personally, but I saw her audition online. I knew immediately, DJ knew immediately, we knew immediately, that's our Angel. She just brought so much nuance and passion. She had all the qualities, because remember, this is a character, a very challenging role to play for an actress, because she had to come up as this steely survivor, everything buried in, like I said, a survivor to just live and not want to take the way out of offing herself, because, that was something that the character in the book had thought about, certainly. But then making that transition into eventually Michael's wife and everything in between. So you're talking about an actress that had a tremendous character arc. They would have to bring a huge amount of qualities. I've always believed, I was a former actor. I studied for 5 years, the top coach. And I always believed in the castability of an actor. And so that they walk in with a lot of that character just inherent, just in them. And she did. Now in the book, Angel's blonde. So Abigail is a redhead. But she was willing to do what she needed for the role. So we made her blonder. And, but really that's just a superficial exterior thing. She's drop dead gorgeous on top of it, which the angel in the book was too. But it's what made her from the inside as a consummate actress, so brave, so strong. I mean, she was all in to the point where there was one scene, I don't want to spoil it for the fans, but there was one scene where she's roughed up very badly. And I got to tell you, every take, she totally went for it. And this, I think it was the first take, she injured her ribs. And she still had to do more takes after. I mean, she really injured her ribs. And so, and just consummate pro, day in, day out. We shot 6 days a week. I mean, this was a grueling shoot. Everybody was all in. So I can't thank her enough. And I mentioned, I think her and her mom had read the book, huge fans of the book. She carried a mantle of responsibility in such a deep way to do justice to the role of Angel. And when I had told her about how much I wanted her to play this, and of course DJ and Francine absolutely loved her. Francine being an executive producer on the picture and co-writer of the script with DJ, involved in every step of the way. We all knew she was the one. There was a scheduling issue with a series she was doing for Netflix, so we thought we lost her for a while. And as it turned out, our schedule was pushed, and we ended up getting her.
That's fantastic. Well, she did a fantastic job. And I just have to ask you, for folks listening in right now who have these big dreams, these big ideas, and they think, well, I've got a film in me, I have an idea in me, I have a book in me, and we hear this all the time. But what are the ingredients that you look for before you go out and try to make something? What are the absolute musts as far as the story is concerned?
Okay, so yeah. I have to say, I think number one, it has to be a story that really resonates you. If I'm going to assume I'm speaking to aspiring producers here. So, or maybe producers that have some projects and are trying to get them made, like I was. It's got to be a story that you feel deeply connected to, deeply passionate about, because that you have a clear vision for. Because believe me, the roadblocks will be many. Making movies is, and by the way, requires a tremendous amount of patience and perseverance. And if you feel that strong and that passionate about a story, those are the qualities. I mean, you've got to persevere. Now, while I say that, at the same time, you also, I say this as somebody saying I've mentioned it here, show business. Okay, I'm speaking about the show part, but I'll add to the show part before I get to the business part. Now, you have to have all those, feelings and choices you've made about the story you'd like to see made into a movie. Deciding now, is this going to be feature for the big screen? Is this something for the smaller screen? Maybe one of the streamers. A series, is a feature or a series. Well, what is this? Okay. But once you've made that decision, I still say on the story side, which will connect to the business side, you really want to do your research in terms of the marketplace, from a macro level to see, has something like this been made? If so, what was it? It's harder to find this out, but there are industry databases. Is there something like this in development that's looking like it might be made? And that's important to know. Is my story unique in the marketplace? And that ties into that, because if there's something already that's been made or is being made, it's not that unique anymore. I I have personally made quite a few movies based off of books. I find that to be a great source to make movies from. It could be I've also made movies based on true stories. So somebody's life story, that could be something interesting. But you want to also, in that vein, when you're deciding upon a story or you have a story, and this does connect to the business side because it is show business, like I said, not show art. So there has to be, if you want to keep making movies, I mean, I would have loved to have, I can only imagine happened earlier in my career, because it certainly does help, because then you have the show part and the business part, and that opens a huge amount of doors. But you certainly want to have something, I think, in the beginning of someone's producing career that you really feel has commerciality to it, that it's not super niche. I mean, if you can get something that has, I'll use the word hook, but something that, you see on a movie poster, there's copy line, whatever it is, from Jaws to Star Wars, there's always a copy line on for us, there's no brokenness. I just blanked on a copy line, but the love can't heal. That's what it is. There's no brokenness, but love can't heal. But it actually also no brokenness, God can't heal. Sorry, I was off on a whole other thing about production here. But it's important that you could really distill your movie down, I think, into a log line, into a tagline, so that because you have to make people aware of what it is they're going to see, because you need to get an audience, and you don't want to be an audience of one. Otherwise, you will have spent countless years, which I've seen producers do, pursuing a story that only them and their family want to see. And sometimes those producers get people to fund them, and then the investor loses all that money. And then the producers is really at the end of their career because they're one and done. Yeah.
Well, Cindy, I want to applaud you for I want to applaud you for doing this. I know that it's probably taken faith-based films to a new level. I know from a production standpoint, you've got a lot on the screen there, and it's beautifully made, and the subject matter, I have to say, I know there are going to be a lot of folks that love this because they love the book, and then there are going to be a few people that aren't going to like it. I sort of look at this as when sort of back in the early days of Christian rock music, how a bunch of people were like, "Oh man, that's the devil's music."
That's right.
I mean, I remember back in the '60s, my dad was a pastor in Columbus, Ohio, and he had a revival. We used to have revivals in the summertime, and where you'd like have church for a week. But he decided he was going to book a rock band, guys with long hair and drums. And I know the church board wanted to like throw him into the street. You can't book somebody with drums.
Yeah. It's funny, David, you bring that up, but this is so wonderful to speak to you. Such a blessing, because I have been wanting to speak about this, and this movie is going to ruffle some feathers, but in a good way. I do agree with you. I remember when Christian rock music came out, and there was a percentage of the church that said, "Oh yeah, that's the devil's music." I mean, so this is one of those movies, but I will say, full on, and you've seen it, this movie, you can't walk away from seeing this movie and not see God's hand fully on it. And as I said, I mean, let's be real here. When we talk about kidnapping and sex trafficking, that's not why the movie was made at all. It's just, this is the story, but like I said, inspired by Gomer and Hosea. Gomer was a prostitute. So, and someone that God called Hosea to marry. So, if you go through the Bible and you look at, and if we were literally to film word for word exactly the way the Bible, is written on screen, there are parts of the Bible that would get, I think, probably an NC-17 in some parts of the violence. Let's be real. These things are going on today.
Oh, they're definitely your movie's rated PG-13. There are parts of the Bible that definitely would not be rated PG-13.
That's exactly right. So I would just say, be very open-minded and current and contemporary about this, because everything we do, first of all, I brought in an A-list director in DJ Caruso, a consummate filmmaker, director with huge success behind him, who's a Christian who was absolutely dedicated to working with Francine to honor the work that God gifted her with. And like I said, both heavily involved. And the movie has been done with the utmost level of care. And we're just in love. Redeeming love, but all of us that made, every person that had anything to do with this movie poured everything we had into this movie. And everything's done very tastefully, nothing gratuitous, very sensitively made, honors the book, and faithfully honors the book. And listen, again, there's some love scenes, because it is a love story. But like I said, you can certainly, and there's actually, I wish I could cite who did this poll, but there is a poll that I've known about for years, that said the difference in viewing habits between Christians and non-Christians is only 5%. So I would hope that the people that might not be so embracing of, we're on the edgy side, to go in with an open mind and heart, and not be judgmental. Just let the experience of this film happen, and I think that they'll be pleasantly, and I think they'll really love the movie.
Well, Cindy, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, and wish you so much success with this. I know it's going to be a game changer, and I just want to let you know how we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I really appreciate you as well, and the show means so much. I really am so appreciative. I'm so happy to have been able to spend this time with you.
Thank you so much. We'll talk again, okay?
Okay. Thanks, David.
Okay. Bye-bye. And thank you, Cindy. That was Cindy Bond, the producer of Redeeming Love. Now let's get to the executive producer, actress, producer, production extraordinaire, Roma Downey. I'm so glad that we could do this today because, I saw the film, what was it, about a month ago? And it brought me to tears.
Yes, it is a very powerful piece, isn't it, David? Especially
as the dad of two daughters, man. And I know that there's a lot of issues to cover here, but this is one of these films that I personally feel is really important, and it's something that, especially in the Christian media, Christian radio circles, we don't want to talk about a lot of these issues. So I'm just going to kind of open it up here with you and ask you how you got involved in this film, Redeeming Love, and why you felt it was important to put your name on it. Well,
many years ago, I picked up the book Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. And I was one of, I'm sure, millions of readers who simply couldn't put it down. It was so powerful, such powerful storytelling, such emotional storytelling. And I felt so incredibly involved with the character of Angel in all of the awful things that had happened to her. And then I was so deeply touched by the love that the character of Michael has for her, and how ultimately that his love, his unconditional love, and the quality of that love is able to bring a healing to her of sorts, all those feelings of unworthiness and shame, that she thinks she can't be loved. His love finally just sort of breaks through, and that just touched me in a way that when the film I actually had an opportunity a number of years ago to meet Francine. She came into the office to meet with me. I was looking at some of her other books with the idea of maybe optioning some of them to make them into film or TV shows. And of course, she wasn't bringing Redeeming Love into me, but I couldn't help but while she was in the office say to her, well, what about Redeeming Love? We're all waiting for that movie. What's happening with that? Could I option that book to make that film? And she said, well, it's actually already been optioned. And that's in process. Well, as it turns out, it was my friend Cindy Bond who had optioned the film. And as fate would have it, or as I really believe, as God would have it, we were brought together, and Cindy said to me, won't you come on board? You have such a passion for this material and for this book. Won't you come on board and be a producer on this film with us? And so I gratefully accepted. I had the opportunity to go down to South Africa, where the film was shot. We actually were shooting down there, David, right before lockdown. I mean, we wrapped, if it was a Friday, we wrapped, and on Monday, South Africa locked down completely. You couldn't get in or out. So I was thankful to get the movie made and to get safely home. And of course, the last few years have been crazy for all of us. But we've been, the team was busy putting this film together in the editing, and it has just, I think, come together in such a beautiful way. It's big, it's sweeping, it's shot beautifully. DJ Caruso did such a marvelous job with it. It feels like an epic movie. Beautiful music, beautiful costumes, beautiful sets, everything that you would hope for a film to be. And yet at its heart, it's dealing with these very serious themes and really kind of ugly themes.
Let's talk about this. Could I ask you just a minute to get a little closer to your microphone? I'm getting a lot of, you know how this Zoom thing is. It's a little weird. So, but let's talk about those themes, because there's some tough themes in these in this thing. But I'll tell you, the redemptive value at the end is was what we're sitting through, and I got to tell you, it was beautifully shot. And the cast is amazing, but let's talk about those themes and how sometimes they're not things we want to really talk about a lot, but they're important.
Yeah, absolutely, completely important. And I think you're right. They're things that we would rather hide from. It's a theme of sexual abuse, particularly abuse of children, and there's a theme of sex trafficking in this picture. Our young lady Angel is sexually abused as a child, and she's trafficked in through a brothel, and she has the most unfortunate, despicable life. Awful things have happened to her, and as a result of those awful, painful things, she has shut down emotionally. Her heart is closed. Life has taught her that people are cruel. And terrible things can and do happen. Our film picks up the story. It's 1850, and it's California during the time of the gold rush. And Angel is now working in a gold mining town, filled with men who look like they don't wash. All there hoping to strike gold, to get lucky, to strike it rich. And she's the most beautiful girl in this brothel. And our young man sees her, and he's a man of faith. He's an honorable man. His name is Michael Hosea, and he sees her, and he knows she's the one for him. He believes he's prayed for a wife, and that when he sets eyes on her, he believes that the God nudges his heart and says, "This is the woman." And so he goes regularly to meet with her, and she thinks he's coming in as a John to the brothel, but he's coming in to talk to her, to listen to her, to try to break down her defenses, to tell her that he could take her away and give her a better life. And she's just so shut down, that she just feels so much shame for what she's been through, so much anger at what she's been through, so much hurt at what she's gone through. But ultimately, the redemptive nature of the film, David, as you know, is that the unconditional love of this man, that he is relentless in his loving of her. And even though she runs away and runs away again, he runs after her, relentlessly loving her, without judgment, loving her. And ultimately, the love breaks down her heart, the guards and the walls around her heart, and it finds a crack. And, there's a great expression that it's in the crack that the light gets in. It's in our broken places that the light gets in. And the symbolism of this film for Michael Hosea's love for Angel is really sort of symbolic of Christ's love for us, of the love of God for us. And I find the book and the film, very healing for all the places in me that feel, unlovable or unworthy, or, on any given day where you just don't feel enough. The movie was a great reminder that, that we are enough, and that it doesn't matter what we've done or what we've failed to do, that ours is a God of second chances and third chances, and that love is always ready and available to us. But I think the film, maybe because it's set in, it's a period film, it's set in the late 1800s, sometimes these themes are easier discussed in that context, because I think we, the audience, like to think, well, that happened back then, but that kind of thing doesn't happen now, which of course is rubbish, because it does happen now. Unfortunately, it happens all too often. And children and women are being trafficked all over the world. And, we're hoping maybe that this film too will provoke these bigger conversations, these important conversations, to highlight these atrocities wherever they may be happening, and that we can collectively come together and say no more.
Why do you think now this Francine's book sold, I believe, over 3 million copies? Why do you think it resonated? What do you think it did so well?
Gosh, I mean, it really, I have known for years, and I've in the faith and family space for a very long time, David. I've lived in this space. I've lived my professional life in this space from my days on Touched by an Angel as an actor, and through my work on the Bible series and Son of God and so on. And I'm constantly have been asked all through my professional life, when is somebody going to make Redeeming Love into a movie? Because you're right, this book, when it came out, it just caught fire, particularly, I think, in the Christian community, but women of all faiths. It's a great, great story, and it's beautifully written. She's a terrific writer. She told me, she was down in South Africa with us, and she told me that she kept a photograph that she found in a news article of a young child that had gone missing, a child that was believed to have been attacked and stolen by some sexual deviant. And she kept this photograph of the child in front of her desk as she wrote. And she wrote the book really with this child in mind, to try to help, to try to create a story that maybe would help children like this. I think that while many of us maybe haven't experienced what Angel has gone through, many of us do have, our own issues. We have our own hurts, we have our own vulnerabilities, and we have our own places where we feel unlovable. And I think it's just the very essence of the healing nature of this unconditional love. I mean, the book is such a romantic book. And I think that every woman I've ever spoken to about the book says, that we're all looking for a Michael Hosea in our lives. We're all looking to be loved in that way, to be loved as if, with no judgment, to be loved unconditionally. I mean, I think that's 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 everybody's dream. And she's written such strong characters here. She's really made them so alive. And so when it came to writing the screenplay, I think that over the years, a few different people have attempted to adapt her book into a screenplay. But there was no better person to do it really than Francine herself. And I think that's why we were all so excited about beginning filming on this film, because Francine, along with DJ, our director, wrote the screenplay. She completely approved of the film, and that was very important to us because it's such a iconic book. And and after all these years, here we are, about to bring it to the screen, and we're just hopeful and prayerful that audiences will be able to get out and come and see it, with their friends, and to talk about it afterward. It's a movie that will stay with you long after you've walked out of the theater, and that was the purpose of it.
Now, interestingly enough, the story really is based on a story in the Bible. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, Francine for many years was in Bible groups, running them and participating in them. And she said that when she got to the book of Hosea, that it really just cracked her heart open. And it was out of that moment that she got the inspiration to write this book. The main male character is called Michael Hosea, not coincidentally. And his love for Angel really, is sort of symbolizes the metaphor for God's love for all of us, and a reminder for all of us that, no matter where we are or what we've done or what has been done to us, because in this case, this was an innocent child that had no control over the atrocities that befell her. And there are many people out there that have been wounded and hurt or abused by other people. And, and God says, bring that to me and put that down at my feet and let me heal you. Let me make you whole again. Let me love you. And that message, when it can be received, is very, very powerful. And we know that film and television can be a great tool, when done correctly, to bring these stories, these messages, in a way that people don't feel preached at or preached to. It's just through the lens of great storytelling and great movie making that you have this very powerful film that is being created. It is, beautiful, it's epic, it's sweeping, and it's touching, but it's also profoundly healing. And for a film to be able to do that is quite extraordinary.
So, other than hoping that this thing does well at the box office, what do you hope to achieve with this film?
Well, I just hope that it maybe brings an awareness of these issues into people's lives. That I know there's a lot of people always asking for help or asking for money for things, but there's so many organizations out there trying to help to stop the abuse and the trafficking of children and of young women, and that anything anybody can do to step up and take an action, to commit in some way, just to helping put an end to this in our world. It's I think it's very important, and that we have these conversations. It is a very ugly thing. Yes, it's awful, and I think it will be easier for people to see it on a big screen and in a period movie. But, I think we also have to remember it could be happening down the street. It's not just in foreign countries this is going on. It's going on also in America. And, and it should and must be ended.
Well, I got to tell you, I really appreciate you doing this. And how many years have you been working on this?
Well, this has been, we finished shooting it March of the experience of COVID has thrown us all into like one endless.
Yeah,
it's been an endless 2 years. But so 2 years ago we filmed it, but of course the project was on the go a few years before that as we worked to get a script and develop the script and so on, and then got this beautiful cast. I mean, we would be remiss if we were talking about our film and that we didn't mention our beautiful Abigail Cowan. This is a breakthrough star-making role for her in the role of Angel. Tom Lewis is very strong in the role of Michael Hosea. And then in supporting roles, we've got Famke Janssen, Eric Dane, Logan Marshall Green, and Nina Dobrev. And they're all just marvelous in the roles, who just bringing these rich characters to life on the big screen. And it's always a lovely thing, David. It starts off words in a book and becomes words in a screenplay, and then you start looking at actors, auditions, and you start seeing costume designs. It's a lengthy process building a film, and it takes a village. It's a teams of people coming together, bringing excellence. We looked around for where to shoot it. Was it going to be New Mexico? Was it going to be Canada? Was it going to be South Africa? And indeed, that's where we ended up, because we were able to create the lush landscapes, the beautiful vistas that substitute for Northern California. And, and with everybody bringing their best, a beautiful film emerged. And, I know that Francine is thrilled, and that was our litmus test, with our author and our screenwriter love the content that was created, and she does indeed. And I'm sure that all the fans of the books will come out to see the film. They've been eager for this film to come to the screen, and I'm hopeful that that new fans of the book, or people will just discover the film because they love this kind of big epic movie. We don't get to see this kind of movie that much anymore. It's Marvel has taken over the theater complexes, and we don't get to see these sort of great, lush, beautiful films with deep stories and rich character arcs. And as I say, DJ Caruso has done a beautiful job bringing this story out, and I don't think that people will be disappointed.
Well, I agree, and I agree that Abigail did a marvelous job, and I really want to thank you for bringing us yet another wonderful story to the screen, and we really appreciate you, and I really appreciate this time with me today.
David, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we've got, from Lightworkers, we've got quite a few things coming down the pipeline, so maybe we'll get a chance to speak again later in the year. I finished producing another movie at the end of last year with Dennis Quaid and Heather Graham. This one is called On a Wing and a Prayer, and it's about a family on a private plane, and they're flying from Miami to Louisiana. It's based on a true story, and there's one pilot on the plane, and doesn't he have a massive heart attack?
Oh my goodness!
On the plane. And
are you telling me that Dennis Quaid ends up flying a plane?
Dennis Quaid has to land the plane.
Of course.
Believe me, they say there's no atheists in a foxhole. Well, he says a prayer. They are a family of faith. They're a Christian family, and they pray on the plane, of course, which is why the name On a Wing and a Prayer. But it's like, it plays out like a psychological thriller. You can't believe what you're watching, and that'll be coming out later in the summer. So maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that then.
Yeah, let's do that. I can't wait to catch up with you on some of those other projects. Let's do that when I'm out there in L.A. And
okay, well, we'll look forward to that. Maybe we can have a bite of lunch or something together.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Roma. Thank you, Cindy. This was a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope that you will go see it and give it a chance. It's just remarkable, and it's going to be in theaters here in just a few days, so please do go see Redeeming Love, and also check out the Redeeming Love Sanctuary Foundation. And you can do that right now at redeeminglovesanctuary.org. All right. Hey, I would really appreciate it if you share this podcast with others. And, it's really cool if you check out our website, which is contagiousInfluencers.com. And you'll see all of our episodes. I think we have about 150 of them up there. And also check out Keep the Faith, keepthefaith.com. That's our radio show. And you can listen to several episodes right there at keepthefaith.com. And also, please do rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcast, because that's how people find out about us, and that's how they get the encouragement from you to spend a half hour, an hour of their time in their busy lives listening to our podcast. Okay, so we really appreciate it. So for all of us here at Contagious Influencers, I want to thank you, and I'll see you next week right here. And be sure to go out there and check out the movie Redeeming Love, coming to theaters here in just a few days. Until then, do me a favor, all right? Go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living in black and white. I'm David Sams. See you next time.